I grew up in a pastor's home. My dad was a pastor, and we were very active in church. And it really didn't surprise anyone when I went into ministry right out of school. Loved it, had a great time, did very well at it, enjoyed preaching the gospel, teaching. But at the same time, there was this other side of me that God had given me talents in that really didn't fit in a local church ministry. Seemed they were around building strategy and building organizational strength and development, things I was really interested in but didn't find an application for in the local church. After I had been in the ministry for 10 or 15 years, my children were growing up, I began to think about how I could reinvent myself. So I looked at other opportunities, and I ended up going to graduate school at Rice University in Houston, began working for Compaq Computer Corporation, was recruited out of Compaq to go to Gateway Computers back in the heyday of Gateway Computers, and wound up being the senior manager of their entire desktop product platform. Went out to Southern California and did some venture capital work, started up a few companies with some other folks, had an office in Geneva, Switzerland, and one in Singapore, traveled a lot. Probably at the height of my career, better than I ever thought it could have been when I was a young person. Everything was going great. We were part of a great church out there, very involved and active with other Christians and believers in our community. But there was just a sense that things were not what they ought to be, that there was some part of my professional life, some part of that part of my identity that wasn't fulfilled. And so we began to pray and study and think and talk and wonder what God might have for us. And that opened the door for Him to be able to show me that reinvention of myself was part of His plan. I began to talk to a few organizations that were Christian ministry organizations outside the local church. And it turned out they were looking for somebody like me. There was an opportunity for somebody who had a business background, experience in growing organizations that could really be helpful to them. And so, amazingly enough, we left Southern California and first moved back to the Dallas area to help an organization called the Seed Company start. At the time, they had about 10 Bible translation projects they were engaged in around the world, and now they're entering their 1,000th project. So things have gone really well for that organization, but once it was up and running, I was looking for the next challenge. So I found a family in Fort Worth that had a private foundation, and I helped them start a company that worked to engage churches around the country in launching volunteer healthcare clinics for the poor in their community. And now they have about 40 clinics nationwide that they're involved with. Once that was up and running, I was looking for something else again. So about 4 years ago, I met some folks who were part of an organization called Angel Flight, volunteer pilots who help people by flying them for medical treatment that's not available to them locally. We've grown the organization, we've stabilized it, and I'll probably be looking for the next challenge very soon. But you can see a pattern here, can't you? If there were times in my life when I didn't feel fulfilled, and I knew that God had something more for me, either on the ministry side or the business side, then the only person standing in the way of that was me. And so I learned to reinvent myself in a number of ways at a number of times in order to fulfill what God was calling me to do. I look back on those days, both when I was in a local church and doing ministry full time, but not feeling fulfilled from my strategic and business leadership perspective. Or I look back to my days in corporate America when I was at the height of my career and things were very successful by anybody's measure. But I look back at those days and I think how unfulfilled I was. And I realize that now I've found a way to put both of those together. That God has given me the opportunity to do business leadership, strategy, planning, but in a very ministry-oriented environment, in an environment that impacts the lives of others for the gospel. You know, I love to be able to talk about my life because I think it has application for other people, and particularly for younger people who are starting out their career or starting out their family life. First of all, don't miss life by preparing for life. Take each new day as it comes. Don't totally believe that your tomorrow is defined by all your yesterdays. Yes, the decisions we make today affect our tomorrows, but our yesterdays don't have to dictate our tomorrows. We can become who we want to be and who God wants us to be each day in a new way. If you're called to ministry in a local church, serve God in that local church. There's no higher calling than that. If you're called to be a business person and to simply minister and witness through your example and through your life at work, do that. Do that to the best of your ability and be fulfilled in what God has called you to do. But if you're longing for something, if there's a sense of unfulfilled purpose in your life that you're feeling and you're truly seeking God for that, don't be afraid to look for something new. View those as God speaking to you and saying, I've got something for you to do with that. And if I've gifted you with that, if I've put that in your life, I'm going to show you a way to use that for my glory. My name is Tim Dammon, and every day is my day one.